Home builders reporting massive issues at the beginning of 2023 signal that the US housing crash is about to get even worse. Take a look at this. KB Homes, the 6th largest home builder in America, just reported that in the fourth quarter of 2022, they experienced an absolutely insane 68% contract cancellation rate. That means that over 2/3 of home buyers in the quarter canceled their contract, walked away from the deal, gave up their deposit, a figure now, everyone, which is even higher than what we experienced in 2008. A signal, if you're a home buyer out there wondering where the market's going in 2023, well, we know where it's going. It's going to get worse. Prices are going to go down by more, and builders are going to have to cut the price by even more because they're now dealing with a massive pileup of inventory, because when you have 68% of buyers cancel the contract, all of a sudden you have a big pileup of homes. Data from Zonda is showing that the number of quick move-in homes from builders, those are homes that are either completed or going to be completed in less than 90 days, now totals 32,000 here in December on the US housing market. That's up a massive 200% from where it was a year ago, and it's now 50% higher than the quick move-in inventory levels in 2019 before the pandemic. And ultimately, this has been something I've been reporting to you guys on this channel for the last year, that the builders were building too much, they pulled too many permits, and that the home buyers wouldn't be able to afford it at elevated prices and 6% mortgage rates. And that's exactly what you're seeing right now. The buyers in the US housing market are on strike, and they're not coming back anytime soon. We're going to need to see both prices and mortgage rates go down substantially in 2023 before we see the buyers return into the market for these builders. And here's actually why I'm even more concerned about what's going to happen for these builders in the inventory levels on the US housing market. Because not only are they reporting crazy contract cancellations today, not only is the new inventory today surging, we're going to see even more homes hit the market in 2023, because when you take a look at the number of houses that builders are actively building right now, these are homes that are not yet completed, we can see that we have 785,000 single-family homes actively under construction at the end of 2022, data from the US Census Bureau. Now that's gone down a little bit from the peak over the summer, but you can see here, this is still near an all-time high. This is comparable to the levels we had in 05-06 at the peak of the last housing bubble. It's similar to the levels we had in the late 70s during a big run-up in home buyer demand that occurred back then. And so we're going to continue to see these homes that are actively under construction today be completed over the next 3 months, over the next 6 months, over the next 9 months. And that is something that's ultimately going to cause inventory to continue to grow on the US housing market. Very important for you guys to understand that we are just in what I would call phase 1 of this housing crash right now. We've seen inventory go up the last 6 months. We've seen prices go down the last 6 months. In certain cities like in Austin, Texas, prices are down 15% already, according to data from Redfin. So this is a housing crash that's here, but it's slow moving in certain cities, right? If you go to the Northeast, if you go to the Midwest, if you go to certain neighborhoods, it doesn't feel like there's a crash yet. And I'm here to let you know, everyone, that this is normal. The housing market doesn't crash all at once. First, you see the initial signs like we saw 6 to 9 months ago. Then you see the inventory go up and the prices go down. But it takes a while for that backlog home building to hit the market. It takes a while, especially for stubborn sellers in the US housing market, to get out of their own way and cut the price by more. You can let me know in the comments section below if you're a buyer, if you're coming across these stubborn sellers. Like this person in Tampa, they just came to market at $530,000 on this 4-bed, 3-bath house. Now, $530,000, that's well above what the Zillow value estimate is of $500,000. So they're coming in high already, and that's more than triple what this home sold for in 2014. And so you have a lot of sellers who still think they can get a housing bubble price. Like maybe they saw their neighbor 1 year ago sell their house for $530,000 in that example in Tampa. And so they think, oh, I can get that, not realizing that mortgage rates are now 6%, not realizing that home buyer demand in Tampa is down 40% year over year. And so, it can be frustrating, right? If you're a home buyer out there, you hear about the housing crash, you see the data I show you or you see on other YouTube channels, but then when you look at listings on Zillow, you still see homes that are priced way too high. And just understand that that's normal, and it takes time for sellers to get out of their own way, but eventually they will. Because the longer that home buyer demand in America stays suppressed, the more that sellers are going to start to feel the pressure. Maybe for 3 months or 6 months, they can kick the can down the road, but eventually they're going to feel the pressure to sell, especially as the recession gets worse in 2023 and the layoffs mount. In just 1 second, I'm going to get back into the home builder discussion and show you guys actually the states that have the most canceled contracts and the most new homes coming to market. But before then, I want to show you some data on just how bad this home buyer demand right now is in the US housing market. Because I don't think a lot of people fully understand just what we're looking at in terms of home buyers being out of the market. And what you're looking at here on this graph, everyone, is a data point called mortgage purchase applications. This is released every week from the Mortgage Bankers Association. What do you see? Mortgage purchase applications so far in January over the first couple weeks are at an index level of 160. Now, what does that mean? 160. Well, this is the lowest level that we've seen for mortgage demand to buy a house in America literally in the last 15 years. There was a couple weeks around 2014 where it got really low, but we're literally talking about, folks, lowest levels in more than a decade for mortgage applications to buy a house. Even lower than they were in 08, 09. Wrap your head around that. Home buyer demand is lower today than it was in 08, 09. One thing I'm predicting for the spring 2022 housing market, looking ahead a couple months, is that we're really going to see inventory spike by even more in the spring. Not just for builders, but for existing homes as well, because we're going to see a lot of the sellers who delayed their decision to list in the second half of 2022, well, those sellers are eventually going to sell, everyone. If they're moving, if they got a new job, if they got, laid off and need to sell their house, they're eventually going to sell, and they're going to do it in the spring 2023 housing market because a lot of them think there's going to be a rebound in buyer demand. And as these sellers all flood to list, they're going to inundate the market with new listings in the spring in a suppressed buyer demand environment, which is going to lead to more of a pileup of inventory, even more price cuts, and home values going down even further. Now, where are the areas in America where this situation is going to be most acute in terms of this buildup of inventory over the next couple months and these builders also piling onto the inventory? Well, it's not going to be evenly distributed. I mean, that's the one thing about this housing crash so far. It has not been an even housing crash. Prices are down maybe 15% in the Bay Area, 10% in Salt Lake City, close to 10% in Phoenix, but they're still going up in parts of the Northeast and Midwest. And one of the reasons for that is the Northeast and Midwest, they don't build many homes. And as a result, the inventory levels in the Northeast and Midwest are still suppressed. And this is something you can get a sense of by looking at this map, which is showing the number of single-family housing permits pulled in 2021 in different states across America. And what do you see here, folks? In the Northeast, you see Vermont, New Hampshire, only 1,100, 3,200 permits. New York, 10,000. Ohio, 19,000. Really kind of lower levels of home building up here. Now, you go down to the Southeast, and it's a different story. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia have 50,000, let's say, permits pulled. Then you go down to Florida and you really start to see where the builders are most active, 133,000 permits for single family homes in Florida. And then you hop on over to Texas and you're like, whoa. 160,000 permits in the state of Texas. And then if you go to the mountain and west coast regions, you see some more elevated levels of building as well, but not quite as much as we're seeing in the Southeast and Texas. And so that means that these contract cancellations I talked about in the beginning of the video with KB Homes and other home builders, well, they're going to have the biggest effect on states like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, maybe some of the mountain states like Utah and Colorado, that's where we're going to see the most new home inventory pile up very, very fast in 2023. Now, that doesn't mean inventory won't increase in the Northeast and Midwest. I predict we will see inventory go up in those markets. However, it's going to need to come from the existing housing stock, existing sellers. And I think one trend we'll see in 2023 is that a lot of the outbound migration that's affected states like New York and Ohio and Illinois, you're going to start to see that outbound migration show up in the local housing markets. The census just released data from 2022 showing that these states lost a lot of people even in 2022 as well. The more people that they lose, eventually that's going to mean a seller moving out of their house, moving to a different state, and there's not going to be anyone there to replace them. And one thing I would just really warn all of you guys about, whether you're in the Northeast or the Southeast or the West Coast, is don't fall victim to kind of this more bullish sentiment I'm starting to see on the US housing market. I don't know if you guys are noticing this, but certain news articles, certain YouTube videos, I'm seeing more and more people say things like, there is no housing crash, like we're at the bottom already. I'm seeing more and more of that out there. And it's crazy to me because it completely doesn't align with the fundamental data that I showed you in this video, with the home builder inventory pileup, with the record low mortgage applications. I mean, that's telling you that 2023 is going to get even worse, especially with a recession here looming in the background. The layoffs are increasing, and the unemployment rate, amazingly, is still only 3.5%. We are still at a record low unemployment rate, which some people are interpreting as a positive for the housing market and also the stock market, but I'm interpreting it as a negative because I say to myself, well, wait a minute. We already have this housing crash starting over the last 6 months at a record low unemployment rate. What does that mean when the unemployment rate doubles to 7%? Well, it's going to mean the crash is going to get even worse. And so if you're a home buyer out there, stay patient. I predict that both home prices and mortgage rates are going to be going down throughout 2023, and that you're going to have a much better buying opportunity later this year.